Hello everybody, and welcome to another IPT2. And this week's podcast is all about negative energy. And no doubt, when you are scrolling through social media, you'll come across quite a lot of negative energy on things that are posted about fitness, health, well-being, nutrition. Certain people seem to be negative. Certain topics seem to be quite negative as well. And this podcast is really just to kind of address the negative energy you can come across in the industry and obviously what you can do about that negative energy. One of the big things, personally, I always try to do is to not be negative around things. Now, there is a lot of things I dislike about the fitness industry and certainly the way people are treated within the fitness industry. And if you were to always be negative rather than trying to be solution orientated, this is something that can then impact the rest of your life. We typically see people that look for solutions tend to have better outcomes rather than those who look for excuses or victim blaming or any of those other kind of negative traits. Uh, you'll see a lot of people uh, tend to try play the victim a lot of the time when something is put in black and white in front of them rather than owning up or just being part of a solution. Instead, they try to say that they are the victim of something. A good example of this was recently Joey Swoll, who typically has a very positive outlook on the gym experience, had a girl who was mocking somebody for doing an exercise. They then got caught, and instead of saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it," I'm uneducated, they actually dug into their position and started saying that the person had harassed them and they had been spoken down to, and that's why there was a group of people around them. And then out came the truth that actually the person is a firefighter who was being mocked. They were doing a type of role that you don't see very often, and that they had never had a conversation at all, and that the group of people were brought round because she wanted to mock that individual. Now, when you look at that kind of evidence and that person then playing the victim, it could have all been very much stopped if they would have just admitted that they didn't understand the exercise, that they were in the wrong. And if that negativity around this whole thing uh, could have easily been explained by that, why not do it? Why not just take the responsibility? Well, it comes down to the whole human experience. People don't like to lose credibility. People don't like to lose at all. A lot of the time, you'll find a lot of people in this life who just stick in their position. And one of the big things we are all about at IPT is having an open mind. There will be many exercises out there that people have never seen or even done before, but until they've done them, until they understand the exercise and why it's being utilized and what it's for, then why say something? Why mock? Why not just try to understand? And again, another good example, we've seen a positive video on social media recently of a girl running on a treadmill with a dumbbell at the side of the treadmill. She's holding on to the dumbbell. She's down really low and she's running. Now, why would you do that? Well, turns out that she's an Olympian. She's a bobsledder. And because they have to run at the side, low down, she's actually running for her craft. She's doing something that is positive towards her actual experience. Now, sure, you might say, well, she can go out and do that with the bobsled, but that's not always possible. And let's face it, if you're training, you want to train as close to the thing you're doing if you are doing a sport. So, yeah, that's a positive thing. There are lots of positives, but this podcast is about the negatives. And starting straight away with negativity, we see a lot of negativity around the experience of becoming a personal trainer. So even from day one, you are going to be faced with negativity. Negativity comes in the form of people who are friends, family members. Personally, I faced a lot of friends at the time who just didn't believe in me. They didn't believe that I could make a career out of fitness. They didn't believe that fitness was my thing because I had been quite overweight for a long time in my life. They didn't believe that I could be a good personal trainer, not because they knew my skill set or my knowledge base, but because physically, at that moment in time, I just looked like, well, personally, I thought I looked like an average guy, but to some, I was a bigger than average guy. Uh, and when I look back at that phase in my life, I was working in security. I was tall. I was broad. I was slender to the point where I was probably about 15% body fat or lower. And I did look the part of a personal trainer, if that was what I wanted to look like. But people still ridiculed me for trying to be a personal trainer. They underestimated my knowledge, underestimated my passion, and didn't really know my background on why I wanted to be a personal trainer. So I faced a lot of that from the get go. I didn't face it so much with my parents, although I would face some uh, criticism later on because of the amount of hours I would put into trying to run a business. I didn't face criticism from my then at the time girlfriend. It was friends. It was really that group of friends, and they weren't trying to humble me. They were genuinely at sometimes being nasty and saying things like, "Oh, Neil will never get clients because he's fat or he's not got a six pack." And even to this day, we've still got this thing in the industry where we have negativity around the way somebody looks. And in certain cases, obviously, that will be part of the business, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But this initial negativity you face is massive and it needs to stop. Because if you wanted to open a business and let's say it was a Shopify business and you knew a lot about the internet, but your friends don't know that, they would say, yeah, go do it, start your own little business. But the minute it starts to become something that they quite can't quite grasp, there is negativity around it. What I would say is give that is the ammunition that people are giving you to basically fire all the shots later. It is the bricks they're throwing at you that you will build your business on. All those nasty things that people say about you, use it as a tool to push you forward. That's exactly what I did. I used it as a little bit of a motivational tool at points for people saying, you can't do this. And I've always been a person, when you tell me I can't do something, I will find a way to do it. And that's what I believe is a good solution to that type of negativity. When it comes to the negativity around other things, especially when you speak to personal trainers, a lot of personal trainers will say, I learned nothing on my course. And that's a big thing that we tried to pick up on here at IPT because it is very much true. There are so many personal trainers who are in the industry just now who have been through a training provider, got the qualification, and have went into their first job not having a clue about doing anything. And that's because they weren't given support. And that negativity you're going to find from other people out there who say that, or even other people who say, you're a new personal trainer, so you know nothing. That is another type of negativity you'll face early on. And if somebody comes to you and says that, fair enough, that might actually be your lived experience. But if you are a student of IPT, or if you're thinking about studying with us, you should be safe in the knowledge that when we're teaching the course, we want to teach you what you need to know to pass the course so that you can pass and pass well, understand the materials, understand the fundamentals, and give you that fundamental layer of knowledge, but then pack on top of it. We need to start building. I like to think about building a pyramid above what your baseline knowledge is, heading towards the ultimate kind of specificity that you want in your knowledge base, be it nutrition, pre and post natal, uh, CrossFit, whatever your knowledge base is, you have to start there to then build upon it to then become the kind of final product that you want to be. So you'll learn about how to be a personal trainer because we'll tell you what it's like to be a personal trainer. We have the programming course because ultimately in your diploma, they teach you a certain way to do it, and it might not be the way that you want to do it for the rest of your life, for the rest of the way you're going to be a trainer. So we have the programming course that doubles down and teaches you over 120 hours worth of additional information. We have then the nutritional course because, again, nutrition is a place where a lot of students going into the personal training world feel they don't know how to handle it for their clients. So we break it down. We have the IPT method. It's not a radical method, but it's a method that has been proven to work time and time again. It's a method that works, that has flexibility, so your clients can understand how nutrition should work within their life because we're not dealing with athletes a lot of the time. We're not dealing with anybody who's in sports a lot of the time. So, how meticulous does it have to be if it follows the principles that you've learned in your course? And again, in that course, you don't get taught enough about how to identify a lot of stuff in nutrition. So again, we go over that in our additional course with again tons more hours for you to learn. Then there is the business course that teaches you how to start your business, what you need to do, and this is all before you even get anything to do with getting a job in the industry. So we have our business course that will be running 4 times a year next year. It's a 2 day course. Now, why do we do it as a 2 day course? Because one day was not enough. You need the 2 days to be able to say, right, I know what I'm doing. And with so many businesses out there starting without that knowledge, they are actually left to their own devices and fail. And that's one of the big things we see time and time again in the fitness industry is people have not taken time and rush into what they're doing and ultimately fail because there's no plan of action. So we are here with the business course to make sure that you are able to start your business and what to do. Actually build your plan with us on the 2 day course. Then, after that, we have the last little bit you need to know, which is the social media mastery course. It's a little bit more on marketing, it's a little bit more on what you should be doing with social media. It's a smaller course than the business course, but it will help you understand how to place and market yourself online with maybe the hopes of someday becoming an online coach or starting a hybrid business if that's your thing. So there are units within that that will help you develop those kind of skills and just help you in general with having a social media presence. It doesn't mean that you will be an ultimate social media, and social media is a very fickle game. Even when it comes to things like this podcast, if I advertise about this podcast, then you'll get some people showing up, but you won't get everybody showing up who sees it because people maybe not value what the podcast is going to give them, or it won't be of value to them, they think, because it's a waste of their time. I really hope within every podcast that we do, there is some golden nugget for somebody. And whether that's just understanding this negative process that you're going to see going through your learning and into being a personal trainer, that's what we want to highlight today. So that might be the golden nugget for somebody, or it might just be that you were thinking about doing our course, and this is the thing that has swayed you because now you understand it a little bit better. Whatever the golden nugget is, we hope there's lots of them, but not everybody will need every golden nugget. So that's the kind of journey we're looking at, first of all, from you purchasing your course to you finishing your course. There will be negativity around it, and there will be negative thoughts in your head as well. And these are thoughts that everybody has. We all go in and we all question ourselves, we question our knowledge. But then there comes a point where, and we see this quite a lot nowadays, people think they are experts very early doors. They think because they have now achieved being in business for a year or reaching some kind of monetary goal that they are now experts in the field. They are experts for themselves. That is the big thing here. They are experts for themselves. Because and let's take, if you were trying to get a six pack, if you were trying to get a six pack, I could tell you the way I went about doing it, and it might not fit your life. I could tell you about the nutrition that I did. Again, you might not like some of the foods. So things have to be tailored for you to actually get the best outcome. These people tend a lot of the time to speak rhetoric. They speak about what worked for them, what they did. Everything's all about them. And it's not about the experience they're trying to give. So, for instance, our course could be marketed as another personal trainer course that you are going to do to achieve your qualification. And it's not, because we look at the way you learn and adapt. We have lectures that everybody will take, and there will be some sort of understanding that we try to get across in those videos. But if you don't get it in those videos, we do some bespoke feedback. We talk about things from your point of view. We try to give you examples that might fit your life. For instance, if you are in a job where you're computer based every day on a desk, you're not going to have the same level of knowledge or interaction with people as somebody who works in hospitality. So, being able to understand where you came from, what you've done, and who you are means we can adapt your learning. We are not just a generic, here's the manual, go figure it out kind of course. And a lot of courses will say, yeah, we'll help you do this, we'll help you do that. And then when they give you the person to tutor you, that doesn't happen. And that's a negative point, but it is a point that needs to be given across. So with those kind of negativities out there, we want to make sure that you're given the best examples, best way of understanding the knowledge put in front of you. And to do that has to be bespoke. So it can't be cookie cutter. That's why we don't do cookie cutter programs either. We don't just make up one weight loss program and give it to everybody. Why would we do that? It doesn't work for everybody. A lot of people will not see the sense in it. A lot of people will find it hard to maybe do even the easiest of workouts because we're not meeting people where they are at currently. So there's a lot of consideration in what we do, and there's a lot of consideration in how you will need to come across as a personal trainer once you become one. And that's partly why we have that business course to make sure that you understand all these kind of things, and the social media course so you understand how you come across, and the programming and the nutrition course so you have really good information to come across with. So, all in all, you should be hitting the ground running. But for those who have not had that experience, those are the ones who will still have negativity around not just doing the personal training course, but being a personal trainer. So once you are employed, once you actually get into the gym floor with the other trainer team, you will have certain individuals who will be really negative. There always seems to be a few negative Nancy's, and that's what we call them, uh, in a PT team. People who are just negative. Sorry, Nancy, if you're listening, but really, that those negative people, they can get to you, especially when you're a new trainer, especially when you feel like you've struggled to hit your targets. Some trainers will give up at this point. They will be negative with the negative Nancy. They will stop doing the things that might actually get them clients. And if this happens, we will see that person fail. That is no doubt going to happen. So, how can you stop that? Well, that's what our business course stops you doing, is being sedentary in the gym, is giving up. Uh, we are here to help at all times. If you have an idea you want to run past us, we will talk about it with you, try help you with it. We're here for career advice. If you feel maybe you've picked the wrong gym to work at, we can talk about your exit strategy. We can talk about maybe the types of places that would suit you better. We can have those conversations with you, and we don't need to be negative about things. We don't need to be negative about the workplace you've chosen to work in just because it didn't work out for you. Once upon a time, I thought a gym wasn't working out for me, and we had 30 plus trainers in the gym, and the gym was in a place where there wasn't a lot of clients to pick up because people didn't have the money. So my strategy was never about trying to find clients. It was about showcasing to everybody what I could do. And eventually, I had 70 hours of personal training a week, all because I persevered, came up with solutions, made the gym my home for a good few months. And then, voila, I started to pick up clients. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes it's just not right for you and it is right to move on. I eventually did move on and I got even busier. I actually got up to 200 something hours and it was mania. It was 10 hours a day uh, plus on some days, 6 days a week. Uh, so, again, just mega hours. And it's hard when you're doing that. And I had to have that buffer time for myself. And that's another negative thing you might start to come out with. I'm doing too many sessions. I'm working too hard. I used to work 12 plus hours a day, and I did that for nearly 2 years. And it was hard. It was very hard work, but I wouldn't have changed it. So I eventually came up with a way of making sure there was always me time, always time to train, always time to eat, always time to have a little bit of time off and relax. And you can then dictate once you're that busy how much you work. You just need to be very meticulous with how much money you actually need. Personal training can be very lucrative. And a lot of personal trainers want to fill their books and then go online and then do this and that and just continue being busy and continue not giving the best service. How good can your service be if you are doing 100 clients? That's a lot of work, by the way. And if you know anything about program building, bespoke program building, if you know anything about nutrition building, if you know about the amount of time it takes to really gather information on somebody, that's that's going to be very negative for your clients as an experience. That's going to be negative for you because you're not doing what you set out to do, which is help people. I think in this day and age, everybody always wants more and more and more, and the quality is getting less, less, less. And so, personally, I don't take on that many clients. Personally, we at IPT do not take on too many students so we can give a better service, better quality of education. We're not trying to say we're number one education provider because everybody's buying our courses, because all the people that keep doing that are the ones that are taking your money and giving you a negative experience. We want the experience to be so good that it is the best bespoke education experience you will get. We don't do as many students because of that. So we can give you better experience, so you can get unlimited career advice. Now, again, going back to the negativity you will face from other personal trainers, if you get brought into that, and you don't use the tools that you've been given to escape it, you'll quite fast find yourself leaving the industry. And that's not what we want at IPT. It's not what we want in general. We want good personal trainers. We want you to be of a high standard. We don't want people who are out there giving out poor advice. And we see it so much. Every time I go to the gym, and I'm not going to say what gyms I go to, I see negativity from personal trainers towards their clients towards them, the way people go about how they do things. And it doesn't have to be that way. They could be positive, but they tend not to be. Now, the next bit of negativity I just mentioned there is clients. And we get negativity in different ways from clients. And the first way that I am going to talk about here is negativity towards something. So that might be negativity towards uh, exercise, negativity towards some sort of nutrition, negativity towards your knowledge. Remember, people have the internet, people have Google on their phone. And when you tell them something and they go and Google it and it's not true or it's confusing to them, you may be challenged. And some personal trainers don't like the challenge. They don't like being told that they are incorrect. But sometimes you might be. Sometimes the information, if you're not keeping up to date with it, will change. So instead of that change, we need to look at different aspects of how you deal with that negativity. Because at that point, the client might change their opinion on you and that might break down the relationship. So let's take an example. You say something, the client comes at you with Google, and now you've been made to look a bit fuel. Instead of doubling down on your position, ask the client to showcase the document to you. See if you can then find more information on that. See if you can then follow up on it with the client. So maybe it's you've said that eggs are bad for you. Now, obviously, we get a lot of information that's said online and so on about eggs. So that's why I've picked this. It's not because they are bad for you. The client shows that they're good for you. And you talk about the cholesterol, but the article is talking about cholesterol and how it's actually doing good for you. Now, I believe in eating eggs if it fits your diet. And I eat quite a lot of eggs. I'm happy with that. Some people won't be. And maybe you've suggested that to your client that they should add in some eggs for some extra protein for the nutrients and so on. So you're now at this point with the client where they are questioning your knowledge. That's where you should be really going away and that day, if you can, get the science behind it. Find the scientific papers that were done on people eating eggs and what it did to their cholesterol or what it did to their bodies or whatever. Actually get some physical scientific evidence. Find some funny anecdotal evidence if you can. There was a TikTok recently where somebody claimed that if you ate so many eggs in a day, you would die. And somebody ate that amount of eggs and they were absolutely fine. You know, a little bit of a fun dig at it. You know, nothing too like bad. And then say if you were wrong as the personal trainer, say that you were wrong and thank the person for bringing it to their attention and explain where your experience came from. That when you were doing your personal training course, for instance, that was what was said during one of the lectures, and you're glad that you've now been updated with the new science. Turn that negativity into a positive and say, in future, I would really love it if there's anything more that you have on these kind of topics that you could send it to me to keep me informed, and actually double down on helping the client and getting them to help you and improve that relationship. Don't just say, well, I'm right because I'm the trainer. Let's take an example of an exercise that you're doing with a client and they don't like it. Have you the ability to explain to the client the benefits of the exercise in such detail that they will change their mind? And if you can't, then that exercise might not be for them. People will like and dislike things in the gym, and if you force them to do stuff, it might not be for the best. But I'm going to take an example here of an exercise. I'm not going to say the exercise because then the person might not feel so great about hearing this. But a person once said to me that they wouldn't do an exercise. They blank refused to do an exercise during a session with me. So how do you then turn that negativity around? Because they were actually very angry when I asked them to do it. And if you think for a second about that situation, what would you do? Would you just tell them to do it? Would you get angry? I didn't. I said, okay, we're going to use the same equipment and I'm going to get you to do two things. And instead of, it was a complex movement, so there was more than one movement involved in it. It was a two-part exercise. And instead of getting the client to do the full version of the exercise, I got them to do the first part, then we took a rest, then they did the second part, then they took a rest. And they didn't complain. They were fine with doing it that way. And then on the final set, I got them to add everything together. And I didn't re explain myself. I didn't say, oh, look, you can do this. I waited till after the session had finished and I got them to think about that exercise in particular and why they said they didn't want to do it. And they said to me it was because they didn't think they could do it and do it well and it would be hard and X, Y, and Z. And because we took the time to break the exercise down for that person, explain the benefits to them, make sure that the different portions were done correctly, they were then able to do the exercise. And there was no complaining. And then they apologised to me. Now that's not going to be the scenario every time. Sometimes people will just blank refuse to do something, and you should just remember that it's something they will not do, and never to put it back in the programming again. And sometimes you'll experiment, and experiments won't go right, and the client might get a little negative around it. But just as long as you can explain the why behind an exercise, the why behind what you're doing, you should never be in trouble with your client. You should never be breaking down that relationship. But then we come on to a different type of client, and this is kind of the last thing, well, maybe not the last thing I'm going to cover, but certainly one of the last things to do with exercise anyway, and clients. You'll get clients who are what we call energy vampires. They're energy sponges. They drain energy from you. And you might not realize this is a person or a type of person until you start training them. And when you do train them and that starts to happen and you feel sapped of energy every time you interact with them, it's probably time to remove that person from your business. Because if you have an energy vampire, say at 6 a.m. you have a client and at 7 a.m. you have an energy vampire, the client at 8 a.m. and the client at 6 a.m. are both going to suffer. The 6 a.m. client will suffer because eventually you will be dreading seeing the next client. So your focus will not be on the training session. You'll not be giving your 100%. The client afterwards at 8 a.m. is going to suffer because guess what? You've had your energy drained, and until you can recuperate that energy, you're not going to be able to train anybody with 100%. So these people should not exist in your business, because if they do, they will absolutely destroy you. And you might think you need every single client because you're building a business. But believe me, from experience and from other people's experiences, you're best not having these type of clients. Pass them on to a PT you think would actually handle them better, or maybe get on with them better, and then in return, just ask that personal trainer to remember you in future whenever they've got somebody that they can pass on to you. Remember, each personal trainer will have different skill sets. So instead of trying to steal clients from each other, being able to recommend personal trainers to each other is what you should actually be looking for. That's a positive workspace, not a negative, oh, he's really terrible, you should come and train with me, which is what it was like when I was a trainer. It was dog eat dog. And I'm glad to say that for the majority of places I go to, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So, what other kinds of negative energy can you come up against as a trainer? Well, if you want to move into management, especially if you end up staying at the gym you're at, there can be a lot of negativity around you from the personal training team you were once part of. They might not respect you. They might not have the ability to see you in your new position and give you the due respect that you deserve. Again, that's typically why a lot of managers tend to be put into a different gym once they get started as a manager. You might find negativity around what you post on social media. And in this case, and if again you get this in real life, kill the person with kindness. Don't go out of your way to be bad to somebody just because they've said something negative to you. Try to explain your point of view. Try to encourage dialogue, and maybe sometimes even say we have completely different views, but that's okay. Don't just go out your way to rubbish people who come at you. Uh, don't be negative towards people when you can try turn that situation into a positive. You'll get a lot of people who are negative online, a lot of people who will argue for the sake of arguing, who will get involved in spats just for some drama. Remember, not everybody is going to have the same kind of mindset as yourself. If you are a positive person, or even if you're trying your best to change into being a positive person, because we can all get times where we get negative on things that are going on in life or points of view. But if you're trying to be that positive person, then it's best to go and actually be positive with everything you do, especially when somebody's trying to be negative towards you. That's a skill. You can't just be positive all the time. Nobody is positive all the time. Maybe behind the curtains or behind the scenes, they have negativity here and there, and we don't see it. But nobody's really positive all the time. It is a skill you need to work on. You need to try get your brain working in a way that it tries to see solutions rather than problems. Anytime a problem is brought to you, you should be looking and thinking of solutions. And even as stupid as some of them may be, remember that being solution focused, being positive, will always give you better outcomes, just like we said at the start of the podcast. And I'm going to leave you with one thing to do with positive energy, because obviously we've been talking about negative. And this was one of my best ever social media posts, garnered a lot of traction back in the day. And it was a picture of an orange. And it goes back to some sort of learning I did to do with the way the mind works. So if you are given an orange and you squeeze that orange, what are you going to get out of it? Will it be orange juice? Will it be lime juice? Will it be lemon juice? Grapefruit juice? It's going to be orange juice, of course. We know that. And what that's a symbol for is if you're putting pressure on something, usually what that thing is made of will come pouring out. And if you put pressure on somebody who's negative, negativity will seep out. If I put pressure on a positive person, or even somebody who is trying to change to be a positive person, positive things will come out. And that's where you want to be, because we're always going to get put under pressure in life. There's always going to be some sort of outside force acting on us. And if we can be positive, then we will have positive outcomes. Because even if it's a negative outcome and you've not quite got what you expected and you still see the positive in it, then it's a positive outcome. So, this is the end of my stupid long podcast today. Hopefully, you found that golden nugget within it. And I cannot wait to catch up with you guys next week. Until then, if there's any question on negative energy, any anecdotes you have, or anything you want to kind of discuss, remember to stick it in the comments. And remember, you can find us where all podcasts are. So just search for IPT2. Make sure you subscribe, because then you'll catch all of our podcasts. And if you would like to be featured on the show, then please get in contact, and we would love to hear about you and the topic you would like to discuss. So, until next time, guys, take care, and I'll see you then.